Hello, and welcome to Right to Be Wrong, the show that revives the art of conversation, accommodating varied views on sports, culture, politics, world events, and every topic under the sun. After all, you have a right to be wrong. Here are your hosts, Dave and Tony.
Tone, our first recording of 2026. For some reason, we seem to have survived long enough to actually move into another year recording our bullshit. And I've said shit. There you go. Google's already going to strike us for, straight off the bat, shocking content, as they call it. You and I will find a way around that. But anyway, my friend, how have you been? You survived the Christmas, New Year period?
I have, Dave. I've been good. It's I want to share something with our viewers. Of course, you and I were seriously considering not returning in 2026, but due to overwhelming feedback.
Overwhelming demand.
From our listeners.
No, well, I don't know if you count like one person and a dog, if that's listeners, or whether the dog's just suffering because the other person's listening.
It's plural.
All right,
okay.
We'll run with it.
Run with all the.
Thanks, Tony's mum.
That's right. Due to overwhelming feedback from our listeners, we are back. We are fired up. There's been so much happening in the break. It's only been, I think, 5 weeks, if that.
Yeah, about that.
5 weeks.
I think the irony is when we've got listeners because some of them don't speak English, so they don't really know what we're saying.
That's right.
And it works
which is probably more intelligent for them.
Oh, just the sound of one English word. These guys know what they're talking about is what they're saying in whatever language they're speaking.
I know. Absolutely. So, Dave, what are we discussing today in the world of culture, politics, society, sport, or any combination thereof?
Well, while we're off, Tone, some really big things have been happening in Trump land. So we'll start off with the former president of Venezuela who was doing his dance and making his claims. So he was taunting. Which would be a penalty in the NFL today. So he was taunting, and what was the result? Trump went flaunting. So Maduro taunts, Trump flaunts.
I love it.
Let's talk about the capture of the former El Presidente.
Dave, this one troubles me, Dave. Troubles me in a good way because I think you and I are going to have what's described as a robust discussion on this.
That's the professional term for saying fucking disagree.
Because I've got some serious issues with the justification for this. I've got some issues with the normalization. Oh, this is just Trump being Trump, this is the normalization of, but the big guy always takes out the little guy. This has happened through the history of the world and blah, 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 blah. And I've got two things to say. One, where are the Epstein files? I'm still waiting for them. Two, how can he justify going into another country? Fair enough. You want to take over their reserves, but abducting charging their president and taking his wife as well for some made-up charges under U.S. law and then try them in a U.S. court, the whole thing, Dave, just reeks of look over there because I don't want you to see what's happening over here, whatever that might be on any given day of the month when it comes to Trump and his Republican stooges.
We should have brought boxing gloves because I'll start with the first thing. I'll reiterate my position for those that new to the podcast, that third person listening. I hold Westphalian principles, which means I believe in the sovereignty of nation states to run their own affairs. That being said, in international relations, I'm within the international relations realist camp. So I know at times those principles sound good in theory, but are they held? So before I go on and everything I say through the next 55 minutes, giving Tony his agreed 42.5% of word count. Keep that in mind. That's where I come from. On the Epstein file stuff, yep, apparently there's been more found and more to come, but we don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
No,
we can do it, but I don't believe the Venezuela thing is distraction. But I do think it's unilateral action based on the fact that the US can do what they want because of the sheer military power they have. Now, it's not unprecedented.
Yep.
This was done, I think it's 1989 with Nicaragua, with Noriega. I think it was Noriega.
Under George H.W.
That's it. So it's not, it's not necessarily a thing to say, Trump's gone Trump and doing Trumpian things. Now, that being said, I do have an issue with the capture of a head of state I'd like to say without a binding UN resolution. Now, having said that, we've done an episode. I did an episode with Gary. Is the UN past its use by date? Which to me, well and truly. So, that's just like a rubber stamp to me that makes people feel good that we still live in this supposed rules-based order.
Yep.
But at this point in time, I still would like to have seen it. I'd like to have seen something where there's a collective agreement that there's evidence before the decision makers that this is a narco state and here's the impacts. Having said that, I would much prefer someone turn around and do what's been done as far as Maduro rather than full regime change and roll the tanks across the border and another forever war. So, again, getting back to that international realism, at the end of the day, it sent a message that the US wanted to send without having to put troops on the ground at this point. As a bit of a weave, I have read some interesting stuff around the sort of technology that's alleged to have been used in it. So, one of the security personnel that was there basically is alleged to have said, we had no chance. They used some sort of sonar weapon. We're all sick. We're on the ground, headaches, in pain. So it's quite interesting that the US appear to be using some very new technology that's made this a very not easy, but obviously no US personnel were killed. Now to go even deeper and wider on it, and I would say that this is part of other people around Trump that are far smarter, because I've said previously I don't believe he's playing 4D chess in the foreign policy and international relations board. But I do think that, as we've agreed, the US empire is in decline. And if you're in decline in business, or even on a personal level, and you start to have to make realistic, rational economic decisions, you start to jettison the things that have less value to you or are too high a cost. So in this regard, it makes sense to start focusing on the Western Hemisphere, which historically was known as the Monroe Doctrine. And, Trump being Trump, he's had to rename it the Dunroe Doctrine.
Because he's a dick.
But it's not his idea. But it does make sense to me to turn around and sort of say, well, Ukraine is not, the strategic interest of the US is not in Ukraine and Western Europe anymore. Western Europe, Russia is your problem. Our strategic interests are countering China in the South China Sea and the Western Hemisphere. So from that perspective, it makes complete sense to start focusing through Central and South America. And it also makes sense to have made a big dent in the Chinese purchase of oil, who were consuming something like 70 to 80% of Venezuelan exports. So there is a deeper impact there that does hurt China. One of the other things from a military technological standpoint, they were using Russian radar and surface-to-air missiles, I'm led to believe, and none of that worked. So that's a very interesting thing as well. What does that say to Russia in terms of how well you've done on the battlefield in Ukraine, but what we really can do if push came to shove?
Russia's a separate story, Dave, because let's be honest, Donnie's just got Vlad's talking points, right? But that's a separate episode altogether. Let's get back to the justification for why they went in, right? Narcotics, right? Dealing drugs, bringing all these drugs into America, and under the guise of there's an act that they enacted, or there's an act that they referenced around clear and present danger, or wasn't that, or something similar, where they basically said, if you do that and you're an existential threat of some sort, then we can come after you.
And that's where I do have issue, right? Because again, getting back to the sovereignty of nation states, let's say the evidence was categorically clear that Maduro is either the head of or significantly intertwined with narco terrorists.
Yep.
What gives you the jurisdiction without someone, a government greenlighting you to go in and arrest someone, or they arrest them for you and they're extradited? For me, the fact you can turn around now and say, we have a right globally to enforce US law without needing the permission of the nation state to enter into their airspace and on their grounds to execute a warrant for the arrest of person X.
Yep, I get it. I think So I've got an issue with that around them effectively being judge, jury, executioner for the president, actually two citizens of another country going in, taking him back to the US, trying him under their laws. It seemed a bit fabricated. The mission itself seemed flawless, fantastic. But the notion of them doing that, my mind turns to, okay, is this also a signal to potential other people who don't toe the line that it could happen to you as well?
100% it is.
So this is actually, for me, that's a bit of authoritarianism on the part of the US, where we're bigger, we can pretty much do what we like because we've got the most dominant, or questionably the most dominant military in the world. So if we want to go and stick our nose into our hemisphere, you will toe the line, otherwise bad things will happen.
Now it is, and I agree 100%.
Now, let's pause there. I can't believe that the US, A, has done that, and B, it's been so accepted so readily by, at this stage, a majority of Republican congressmen.
Now, I'll start with the first one, which is you can't believe the US has done. This has been happening since 1945. The difference is the facade is not there this time around. And this is where I like it, right? If you're going to say we're the big fish, we're going to control things, I prefer the honesty. And that's why even we're going to record an episode on Greenland. I prefer the honesty of saying this is what we want, this is why we want it, and basically if you don't do what we want, this is what we're going to do. Now, that doesn't make it right, but I respect that. What I don't respect is bullshit reasons. You give me weapons of mass destruction, right? And 500,000 civilians get killed. US personnel are killed. Others are killed. You give me bullshit reasons to go in with Gaddafi in Libya. So I do take umbrage at people thinking, oh, this is whole. How could Trump do that? No, this is what Obama did. This is what Clinton did. And both Clintons, mind you, one as Secretary of State and one as President. This is what George Jr., George Sr., this is what they do.
I know,
but the difference is they've given us such bullshit stories and other times that they've dragged innocent people into it.
I agree.
Where in this one, you go, well, how many Australian soldiers were at risk in this? How many British soldiers were at risk? How many French with a coalition of the willing and the bullshit?
But the issue
I prefer this model.
No, but the issue is, Dave.
Even though I agree with you, I think it's
I agree.
100% very much, you know what, I'm doing what I want.
Which is fine, but I go back to George H.W., George W., Clinton somewhere in between, Obama, and all of them never, ever, ever said the words that sounded like, we're happy to just stick to our knitting and stick to our own backyard and put America first. And they never, ever said that they didn't want to have a disproportionate influence on other parts of the world to push their ideals, being freedom and liberty and democracy, correct? None of them ever said that. They said they're willing to stick their nose in places where they think, under the guise of democracy, they've got an interest and they should have a military presence there. The issue is Donnie said America first, right? America first. We want to worry about people here. We want to look after the base that voted for him, who are largely at the bottom end of the scale.
What do you think happened with Iraq? You don't think that was America first? You don't think that was Halliburton and controlling oil? That's what I mean. The difference is he says America first, I'm cutting out the bullshit.
No,
and there's no facade this time. And when I say cutting out the bullshit, what I'm saying is I'm not saying the Don doesn't bullshit. What I'm saying is he's at least being honest enough to say it's America first. This is what we want. This is what we need. This is what we're going to do, without giving me weapons of mass destruction, without stretching Article 51 of the UN on collective self-defense, without the bullshit.
Yeah. So
don't get me wrong. That doesn't mean I agree with it, because I didn't agree with the weapons of mass destruction. I didn't agree with the bullshit on Gaddafi. I didn't agree with all the things. So I still disagree. What I like is this time around, people's innocent kids haven't been sold a lie that you're defending America, son. You're defending America. You're going into Iraq. That's like, and that 19-year-old believes you and he dies. This time around, special forces went in. They achieved what you could probably, someone else might have wanted, regime changed and caused thousands, if not tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands to die and be injured. So for me, it's very much, if you're going to do the wrong thing the right way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. But it's all still built on a lie. The fact that he said it was he was a narco terrorist.
Well, I don't know if that's built on.
No. Well, hang on. He was a narco-terrorist then, right?
What the issue here is there's no procedural fairness if you go to the left, which is there's an accusation.
But there's inconsistency as well, Dave. The Honduras bloke pumped $400 billion worth of drugs in the US and Donnie pardoned him. Now you can go. Your narcos are okay. You can go, Mr. Honduras. But Venezuela guy, who happens to have 40% of the world's oil reserves, no, we're going to come after you.
But the argument you're making is a repetitive bullshit argument that's been made. Because, for example, taking that approach, right?
But you said, Dave, that it was built on lies in the past. Trump lied blatantly. He used the guise of narco-terrorism.
Hang on, we don't know he's lied. Oh. The guy's before the courts. Now, the issue I have, he's before American courts, but he's before the courts. He may be found innocent, which then creates a problem for the US and what they've done, but he's before the courts. So they haven't played judge, jury, and executioner because he's getting procedural fairness. The breach here is you've gone into a sovereign nation's territory to arrest the person as part of a police operation that's very much a military operation. But the issue around the lies, this has happened forever and a day. Like forever and a day.
I get it, but Dave, you said that Donnie he's being honest about it.
Yeah, he's being...
Right? What I'm saying is...
Because what he's doing, he's using things that appear to be he can categorically prove to get what he wants. Now, what you're saying is there's a not even application of that across nation states, right? So that's different. There's a difference between a lie and applying the truth here, but not applying it here in the same circumstances, right?
Yeah, because Donnie would never do that, would he?
Well, no one ever does it. Because why did we not go to Rwanda? Why is it that the United Nations and the US only in the post 1945 only go to places that either have resources or strategic value? So that argument can be made forever. You go, well, why aren't we in China with the million Uyghurs in prison? Why don't we go into Nigeria at the moment with the Christians being slaughtered? The harsh reality is that wars cost money, so someone's got to pay for it, and they want return on the investment. And Australia, we're no better. Yeah. We turned around when the East Timorese were being slaughtered by the Indonesians, and we went in and we said, we're going to ensure your independence, and we're going to help you set up government, and we're going to help you have free elections. And notwithstanding the TNI at the time had 6 million troops, and they could have literally wiped us out, but the reason why they didn't is they knew that the US had sort of said, hey, the Australians are doing X, Y, and Z, and if there's a problem, we will send a battle group. But we then signed an agreement to take gas out of the Timor Gulf, and it wasn't like, look, we'll take 10% of it to cover our costs and a little bit of benefit. We take 60%. So it didn't even go in their favour. So this is the reality of the world. Now, does that mean it's right? No, it doesn't. We're on the same page as that. But I won't get myself wound up to go, well, Trump's applying these principles here because here's the benefit. There's no benefit here, so he doesn't apply the principles. Because you're right. You're correct in what you say. The issue is every US president, every British prime minister, every empire that's ever ruled, that's the same.
No. All I'm saying is, Dave, and I've said this consistently since the first time he was elected, right? I look forward to seeing the benefits that he provides to the base of the right that supported him all the way through, because there's lots of media commentators at the moment who are saying he's lost MAGA. He's moving away from what.
So who are the commentators? Because a lot of media commentators said that Clinton was going to be the first female prime minister. A lot of them said Trump had no chance. So who are the commentators? I put no stock in mainstream commentators.
Oh no, Dave, you got to put stock into sometimes stuff that you don't necessarily agree with.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that I don't agree with. I'm saying there's a group of commentators that their track record is so bad.
I'm on X, right?
So who is it though that's saying it?
Like if you look at even guys like Bannon, right? Bannon, he was there at the genesis of MAGA.
Yeah,
right?
Bannon's actually been talking like he's still close to Trump, and he stopped being close to Trump in 2017.
But there are times when
because he thought it was his movement, and he made the mistake.
Yeah, no, but that's all history, Dave. Like you got to go. If you go back to the genesis of Trump, the genesis of MAGA, right? 8 years ago, if I'd said to you, listen to what they're saying in terms of MAGA, does that sound like in 8 years' time or 12, whatever it might be? No, 8 years' time, They're going to step into Venezuela. They're going to look at other parts of the world. They're going to want to make Canada the 51st state.
Well, actually, I think the part of Canada will become a 51st state because the Albertans.
I'm happy to revisit that. I'm happy to revisit that in episode 150.
So yeah, we'll that's a whole separate thing of what's going on in Alberta and Saskatchewan at the moment. But this stuff, he's losing the base. I just don't see it. And the same polls that I read, I follow, that help me literally predict to the electoral college votes with the popular vote sweeping the battleground. They're not showing up in the numbers. These claims don't show up in the numbers.
All right, Dave, I'll go there.
One of the things he really wants to do, if Trump's going to play this game in Venezuela, what he needs to do is he needs to ensure that U.S. oil companies have capacity to maximize the value to drive things down, like the price of gas at the pump.
Yep.
And not just for his base. Like, obviously his base would love it, but there's going to be others at the end of the day if the fuel's getting cheaper. And Greenland, we'll go into this in a separate one, but again, what's it about? Resources, right?
Yeah.
These are the realities. So, as I said at the top of the episode, me understanding why, me preferring this model rather than 500,000 people killed and bullshit through the UN, it doesn't mean that I say it is right.
Yep. So I must have misinterpreted what America First was.
Well, what do you think America First means? See, I have no issue with America First. I'd have an issue if it was America only.
I get it. But America First to me was
separate things.
The government should be working for the people. We've had enough of sticking our nose in other areas and coughing up money to help subsidize other nations in terms of their
so far
defense,
you're right.
Right?
Yeah, I think you're
that's right. And we want to focus on delivering better outcomes for Americans. That means drain the swamp, get rid of the radical left, blah, 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 all of that, which is all good stuff.
So far, I think you're on the money. I don't think you've misinterpreted.
But then all I'm saying is I can't see where the benefits are going to come for the American taxpayer when you hear him say things like, and this is part of, I'm looking at now like an expansionist view of America.
No, I think it's a shrinking of America.
I don't think it.
And I think you're missing you're correct in everything you interpret. Well, I think you're correct in everything you interpret MAGA to be. The difference is here, if you're going to curtail the flow of drugs into America, that's helping Americans because people carry on about gun deaths. It's nothing compared to drug deaths in America. So that's number one. Even though I don't believe this to be, he was a narco-terrorist, that's given them the justification, or he's alleged to be the head of a terrorist organization. That's the justification, but I don't think stopping the flow of drugs is the main point. I think that's a benefit, and he genuinely wants to do that. To me, getting Venezuela, their oil capacity up to its true maximum, which means a number of things that benefit the US, driving prices down, less reliance upon the Saudis. So it means you can start to disentangle from the Middle East because you don't need to rely on Middle Eastern oil. You're getting it more out of your backyard. So prices down, less drugs, less reliance on the Middle East, which means less Middle Eastern intervention, and potentially less support for Israel, potentially, but
that ain't going to happen, Dave.
I don't think so. And on top of that, as I've mentioned, you've taken supply away from China, who is a genuine enemy, and you can start to get to a situation where adding, when we go into the Greenland one, adding the resources out of Greenland means the 90% control of the supply chain for critical minerals and rare earths that China currently has, as again, you ramp up your production that helps with domestic supply, you're less at the behest of China and you can start to decouple more. So for me, everything you said that MAGA is, I agree 100%. I think all of this falls directly under that umbrella. Now I get to the point, as I say, what was the cost of the Iraq war? I think it was something like, they reckon the war on terror is up to $20 trillion and counting. I'd love someone to give me the numbers of what it cost to get Maduro because the outsized impact that's had, better than rolling tanks into the place.
But so the point
and again, I still underpin, I agree with you. I think this is very much... getting back to Eisenhower, walk softly, carry a big stick. I think we're seeing the US reassert itself, but again, shrinking, right? So we're not Ukraine, I want done and dusted. The Middle East, I don't want so many entanglements. I'm going to concentrate on Western Hemisphere and China.
Yeah. But I'd like to see that in action.
Well, that's what's starting to happen.
But if they truly wanted to untangle themselves from the Middle East, there's actions they could take immediately in terms of the funding of certain states over there that they haven't stopped, which is fine. But
the untangling is deeper than that. It's not just about sending money out. It's about the reliance upon the Saudis for oil, right, to run your economy.
Yeah, I get it. But mind you, the Saudis...
because the House of Saud, the agreement with the House of Saud that was made back in when Nixon takes
on the US dollar.
It is the
petrol. You've got to realise, Dave,
that's ended. Most people don't know that. So
but
the other thing he's trying to do is protect the US dollar.
I know, but then so what you're going to end up getting, right, is, and this is where some of the MAGA-rights will get their noses all twisted and go, oh, that's not, like, you're going to get people like, I don't know, the Prime Minister of Canada may be going to China and saying there's a new world order, right? And they're going to start cutting the US out, right? So what happens?
Mark Carney, even though he's a globalist, there's no one, there would never be a Prime Minister in Canada that would try and get close with China.
Okay. Well,
because this is the exact reason of this Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine. As soon as that happened, there'd be you keep going, there will be tanks across the board.
Well, all I keep saying, Dave, is and this is what I mean. There's every right. So it's okay for the US to progress this smaller US, America first, but not America only. And it's in our interest to take a look in Venezuela. What's happening to the north? To the east or the northeast of Alaska, up in Greenland. It's okay for them to do that, but at the same time, another sovereign state is not allowed to act in its best interests.
No, that's not what's being said. That's a complete misinterpretation.
No.
In fact, what is going on is
Dave,
because that state is acting in its best interests. That's what it is. The world geopolitics is a never-ending game of chess, and the reason why they're doing it is because we've been asleep at the wheel because we love cheap TVs. So for 30 or 40 years, the other sovereign state has been doing it. So the US is not saying you can't do it. What the US is saying is everyone else has either been in your pocket or they're socialist communists and they think that you're kinder than what you are, or their greed or their corruption has led us to a place where we're looking at the chessboard, and if we don't start making some moves now, it's going to be checkmate soon. So what's happening is they're turning around and they're reasserting.
The US. I get it. All I'm saying is, but then other countries can respond to that. NATO can respond to that as well and say, you know what, we might just cut the US out of it.
100% they can. 100% they can.
So then if you look at the top 10 countries that own US Treasury bonds, right, what happens, Dave, if they start dumping them?
They can start dumping them. There's plenty of things people can do, but it's like everything, right? It's when you're in a situation of whether you're going through a divorce, whether you're in business, what you've got to do is there's a difference between what I can do to you and what's the escalation. And on the escalation ladder, right, there's a theory on escalation ladder. Now, generally it's applied to something like federalization, because what it is at the local level, you think you're going to win, but who controls every step of the escalation? Now, the reality is if you're Europe, where you've already got problems because states are realizing that the EU is not necessarily a benefit for them, so you've got a whole other risk of breaking up of the EU, let alone before we talk about NATO. But NATO already can't even support Ukraine defeat Russia on its own. So if you want to turn around and say, well, screw you, the end of NATO, I can tell you, as a US citizen, I'd be happy at the end of NATO. NATO is well past its use by date as well, and the only reason it survived this long is the US taxpayer. So if you want to make that threat, good luck to you, because I tell you what it would do. As someone that follows this, I'm not in the camp that Russia wants to reestablish the Soviet Union.
I think you're naive.
I'm in the camp they want to take back the parts that they consider always Russian, but I don't see them going back through Central Asia and this Soviet, right? So that means there's a certain level of expansion I think they want, but it's not back to the Soviet Union. What people don't realize, and the reason why it collapsed, empires cost a lot of money. The British Empire collapsed, and it won 2 world wars, and it still collapsed and lost its empire. It's expensive, right? That's why they didn't renew the lease in 1997, handed it back to Hong Kong. So with NATO, you want to start making those threats, go for it. because I can tell you who's going to win the end. The harsh reality that people need to accept, if you want national security, there's only one big boy on the West, and that's the US. The next one is China, right? The Brits didn't even can't do it.
But all I'm saying is
so all this stuff, and even still, all this stuff that this will happen, the end of NATO. If you think that through, what you're really saying is, we will no longer allow the US to subsidize our national security. That's what we'll do to you. Okay,
yeah, but I actually think
that's not a threat.
But I actually think that's a step that the Europeans should take. At the same time, if the US put one foot into Greenland, any Australian government worth their quid, right? Any Australian government, would close Pine Gap at a heartbeat and tell them to rack off.
Yeah, and what's the escalation ladder?
How so? What do you mean?
And they'd turn around and go, close Pine Gap. All right, we'll take our troops out of the north. Okay, now we'll do this.
Good.
All right, we'll get rid of ANZUS.
Good.
And then the Chinese go, bingo.
But Dave,
this concept tone that because you bring it up sometimes, you say,
Dave,
if China,
I want to know when China, right, has overtly expressed any type of desire to militarily take over Australia. Now, I also say that at the same time, at a soft level, at an economic level, they've got us by the short and curlies for the last 30 years.
That's right. Because we're not the number one military target. They've been trying to take over in other ways. Their number one military target would be Taiwan, and that would be Japan. That would be South Korea.
Absolutely.
Right?
Due to proximity.
And then what do you think's going to happen?
But Dave,
and this concept, concept of...
You can't all I'm saying is, if that's what China wants to do and they're the biggest boy in town, based on your logic, if the US can do it to Venezuela for their
100%
hemispherical interest, well, then China's got every right to park some boats at Circular Quay.
100% China can. But this is what I'm saying to you. The misunderstanding that you have is you think that if China then become the big boy here rather than the US, that our life stays the same.
No, I don't say that.
I lived in China. B, talk to anyone that's in Hong Kong that lived there pre-97 and lives there now and ask them if they still have democracy, free speech, private property rights, rule of law. They don't, right?
But I'm not uncomfortable with that, Dave. I'm just saying I've got to accept that's a reality of life.
Of course that's a reality. But I agree that's not in the thing. What I'm trying to tell you, though, is I'm not saying China can't do it. I'm saying China's trying to do it.
I'm saying China largely has done it already.
With the exception of the military, but that's why they're starting to send ships around and everything they're doing. So if you want to live, here's the reality. There's this strong, you have a very anti-US under Trump, under the right. Otherwise, you love the US, you love the sports, you love the model.
Yeah,
right?
no, there's a lot that I love about the US, but
I'll put it to you this way. Do you want to live under US supremacy or Chinese supremacy?
No, I want to live under Australian supremacy.
Yep, we're 28 million people. It's not going to happen. See, this is why here's a criticism of us in Australia, and I hear this from the alleged intelligentsia and the academic circles. We're 27 million people. I spoke to a Royal Australian Navy commander about 10 years ago about this, and I said I'd read that based on our capacity at the time, we'd last 30 days if China kicks off.
17.
Goes, Dave, we'd last 14.
Yeah.
Right? We think that the rest of the world gives a shit. We think our 27 million is a lot. We're nothing. The Indonesians, if they decided they didn't want to be happy, peace-loving people, could take us in a heartbeat. They're 260 million people. The standing army of Indonesia is 6 million. So they put them on boats, they send them across that to the end of Australia. We have this unbelievably arrogant perception that we can be some power.
No,
if we want to be a power, we need to take that big Australia policy and ramp it up to 120, 150 million people. And even then, that would make us a regional hegemon. It wouldn't make us a global superpower.
But Dave, I've always said, instead of trying to secure ourselves from Asia, we should actually source our security from Asia. I've always said that Indonesia is that natural
100%. Professor Hugh White's made this argument for a long time.
And Keating made the argument 30 years ago, and he got talked down by the Conservatives who wanted to still lick under the old bootstraps of the UK and the US.
But it still doesn't change that the shipping lanes and the reason why ships can travel around the world and bring our goods to us cheap is the US Navy keep those shipping lanes open, which means the US taxpayer do it. Yeah. Right? So for all the things that I can disagree with, you know, the way in which Maduro was taken, the way in which the US make a bullshit argument here and there to go into this country because it's got oil, and this country because it's got lithium, and this region here because it's strategic. It's an unsinkable aircraft carrier. The reality is, I will live under US supremacy or British supremacy or some Western nation supremacy than I would under Chinese supremacy, because it's not a life you want. As I said, the first thing we had to do when we went there, so we were told we had to go and register with the local police station so they knew where we were living, what we're doing. This was as students. So it's not this concept of China has a right. Yes, they do. I've never argued Iran has a right. We have a right to do it. We do it. This is the thing. A lot of people, because they either don't, they've not, I hate the word not educated enough, because I want to do a whole episode on this perception that pieces of paper make people educated. But they've not done enough reading and not historically aware of what Australia does to ensure our own interests. We're literally putting a team in Papua New Guinea. It's a political reason, the NRL team, right? So you are correct. China has a right to do it. They have been doing it. The US is trying to counter where China's influence is starting to impact the US.
Yeah.
And for us, we don't want Chinese battle groups in Sydney Harbour.
So we talk about you going to China, you're a visitor, where you're going, give us access to your social media accounts, blah, blah, blah. And then I pivot to the right and I look at a new screen from the US and I see citizens of the US being hauled into vans by the goon squad of Stephen Goebbels.
I keep hearing this, but Dave, no one can give me names of these citizens that I keep getting.
What about the girl that got shot in the head 3 times by an agent in Minnesota? Was that made up? I saw it. Was that fabricated?
I saw it.
Did she try and run him over?
Yes, she did.
Oh, God.
Yes. Have you seen it?
Yes, Dave, I've seen it.
So
we agree to disagree, Dave. Shot in the face 3 times by a masked bloke who can't identify himself.
Hang on. When you come back from your next Fiji trip, just try and go through immigration without doing anything. Don't obey their orders and just go through and see what you do. And then when they tell you to stop, run off and see what they do.
Okay.
Right? So that's the first thing.
You mean at customs?
Yeah.
At the airport? Yeah. Coming back into the country?
Yeah. So that's the first thing.
Not dropping off my 6-year-old child.
Hang on. That's the first thing, right? So you see what our customs does, and they have a right to tackle you. And
Absolutely.
They will cuff you. They'll do everything, right? So that's first and foremost. So that's what they're doing. They're enforcing the laws of the land that those sanctuary cities don't want. So that's the first. So what happens in a situation where you're aware, whether it's police, whether it's customs, you're aware it's an authority enforcing something, what do you do if they tell you to stop?
You stop.
Right. Did she stop?
No.
Did she get out of the car when she was asked to?
No.
Right? When they went to open the door and asked her to step out, did she?
No.
Right. When they were filming around the car to get the license plate, and her wife is doing it. Right. And then what did she do? Did she drive off? Did she start?
She turned slowly, Dave. Right.
You know that guy. You know that guy had been hit and spent months in hospital because someone ran him over only 9 months earlier.
Probably deserved it.
No. Right. See that's a serious issue. This is what we're getting in Australia, right? This is why people don't respect police. If she was just dropping her kid off, she wasn't part of, even though this background now they've found out she's what they call ICE warriors or whatever they call them. Why didn't she just say, sorry, officer, turned down the wrong street, I'll get out. As you can see, my child's in the back. Here's my ID. If we're going to start making arguments that you get to pick and choose when you listen to authority, you get to be the sole arbiter of what laws you think are right, we have anarchy.
Okay.
And the fact that this is getting defended, I can accept the defense of saying where some go, he didn't need to shoot. I disagree. But I can take that argument. Or if they had said, did he shoot the tyre? I can take that argument.
Do we agree she got shot?
Hang on.
Did she get shot?
Unarmed. What's a vehicle?
Did she get shot?
Yeah, she got shot. What's a vehicle?
How many times?
I think it was 3.
Whereabouts?
In the head. Good shooting.
Cool.
But hang on, you're missing the point. So,
Dave,
if you go out on the road today when we leave the podcast and the policeman tells you to stop.
I would stop.
So we've got to stop defending people who've done the wrong thing repeatedly. She's had 3 minutes.
Right, I'm defending the goons.
But that's the wrong way. You can't defend an outcome. We either have laws or we don't. We have to obey them or we don't. Individuals don't get to choose.
Right. That's right. So basically what we're saying is listen to law enforcement. Are they law enforcement?
Yeah, immigration and customs are law enforcement.
Could they be identified who they are?
Why do they have to be? Our public order and rights squad don't. They can walk around with it and they don't have to. You know why? Because once it's known who they are, someone they locked up 5 years ago for $100 million drug operation, go and attack their family. This concept that we can't have, that's why our special forces, do you ever see special forces faces when they do documentaries and they do bits on them?
It troubles me, Dave. It troubles me that someone got shot in the face.
No, it troubles me that there's an argument that people that repetitively over minutes, we're not talking even split seconds, over minutes, A, can choose what they think is enforceable, B, can ignore repetitive requests and demands to obey, and then can use a vehicle, and this I'll take subjectivity, but what I've seen, she's used a vehicle as a weapon. And we've seen that because people get run over. We've seen someone drive a truck into Christmas markets and kill 86. This stuff that if this happened and it was the Biden administration's eye, it wouldn't happen. To me, there's a link here between Trump has sent and therefore everyone on that side's on the right. It's the same you just called the guy Goebbels. Like, that is such an insult. To anyone that truly understands the Holocaust,
I'll stand by it.
To call the guy, you don't know enough about Joseph Goebbels then.
I know enough about Stephen Miller.
What's he done? How many people has he had a plan to go and send to gas chambers, to send to concentrate? Like, it's really, and I'm not Jewish for anyone that's listening, but this is why we got to the level of where the anti-Semitism around the world's ridden, because this shit gets thrown out like it's nothing. He's not Goebbels. You can make complaints. You can say, I think he's too hardline.
No.
I think he's reckless. I think he's too tough. But this historical, Trump is Hitler and he is.
No. I never said Trump is Hitler.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm saying that that's what people say. It's getting madness now. I disagree with you, so I'm going to label you a historical figure that was some of the most heinous that the world's ever seen. It's insane. He's not Goebbels.
It just rubs me up the wrong way. The narrative, the propaganda.
But why do you think there's no narrative on the other side? So why can she be an ice warrior that they are part of a club that go out to deliberately stop ICE officers executing their duties?
So when Charlie Kirk got murdered, what did I say? You know what disappointed me most? He's a husband and he's a dad. Gone.
Yeah, right? that doesn't worry me. Yeah, because Ivan Milat was a husband and dad. It's a very poor thing. There are times where people can be husbands and dads and be terrible people.
I'm talking largely innocent people who expressed a view or did something that was like he had certain views and he got drilled for it.
If she was protesting peacefully, right, and you see her standing on the side, and by peacefully that doesn't mean I don't think you can't yell out and scream and whatever. That's fine. Peacefully to me is you're not touching the officer, you're not throwing things at the officer, you're not spitting in the officer's face, right? This narrative that she was some angel.
No,
is not the case.
I'm just saying.
She put herself in a place, and there's even recordings of her own wife saying, this is my fault, I did this. And I understand, like, in the moment of grief, but I know why she said it. Because she's the one that's pushing, we've got to go down there. You shouldn't be going anywhere. Like, literally, these people are insane. Why are you trying to stop enforcement where even if they get it wrong, let's say they pull someone off the street and it turns out it's not the MS-13 gang member, they haven't been done for rape or whatever. Guess what? The process will sort that out. But all you're doing is escalating. We are starting to justify and say individuals get a choice now on what laws you think should be enforced, and you get a choice here. If you think the person in that blue uniform, that brown uniform, whatever around the world, you have a right because you've made a decision in your mind that you're now the arbiter of the law. If you think ICE should be abolished, you go and vote for the person that's running on ICE should be abolished.
It's interesting, but all the sanctuary states are blue ones.
That's right.
Because all the illegal aliens are coming in and apparently, according to Stephen Miller, they're creating millions of illegal voters. Millions.
Actually, there has been
millions.
Yeah, there's
because like there'd be no.
I saw Georgia just admitted there was something like 300,000 votes that shouldn't have counted in the last.
There'd be no illegal immigrants in Florida, would there be?
So, but that's not the point.
Dave, if you enforce the law, you enforce it equilaterally.
100%, and they are.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
They're in Minnesota. They're in California.
Yeah, why are they in Minnesota? What took them there?
Tim Walz, an agenda against him and the Somalian stuff.
an agenda. So there's no $9 billion in fraud. There was no leering centres, no childcare centres that had no children. There was no 5,000 children's meals a week going out of a restaurant that didn't even have capacity for it. So it's all just made up.
Yeah. That's my position.
So you think yes. So there's been no fraud, and it's all wrong.
So Dave, if there's been fraud, fine, right? But then
now, if Tim Waltz hadn't just turned around and said, because you know that police have been told to stand down, you know this is that ladder of escalation. Because what's happening is people like Tim Waltz play politics, right? I'm going to do this. Police have been told to stand down because he's talking to his base. So what then happens? Then you've got ICE agents trying to do their jobs. Then you've got citizens that are doing what they're doing, and no police are coming in and stopping them. You can't have – it is indefensible. I will even take the point if someone says, I think he should have shot the tyre, I think he should dive down. I can take those arguments. But the reality is that's the end result of her making a decision that I disagree with the law. I think you shouldn't be doing it. So I have a right now. Forget our laws. Forget your authority. You should do what I say. Imagine that. That's the Wild West.
So talk to me, Dave. Imagine in Australia, every time there's some type of budget blowout, like the Western Sydney Airport.
It's not a budget blowout. There's a whole.
Or there's like, are we
they've traced money to Al-Shabaab.
Okay, well, Dave, let's kind of go into the NDIS then, where all this fraud, and let's start drilling some people.
Yes, please.
All right, let's start taking some
100%.
And let's get the feds to appoint some goons to go out into all these.
But you keep saying feds to appoint some goons. This is not. It's not Fed appointed goons. Immigration and customs enforcement has existed for decades. For decades. Right? This is not. Trump didn't just create a bunch of brown shirts. These people have been doing this under the Biden administration, under the Obama administration. Obama actually holds the record for the most deportations to this day.
Yeah, but I didn't see people getting dragged off the street who are US citizens, did we?
You keep saying US citizens. Give me names of US citizens get dragged off the street. Give me the names.
Dave,
tell me the names of these people. It turns out they got it wrong. US citizens.
If you can't be like,
so they're not US citizens.
Dave, if you can't even accept the fact, right, that they're being a little bit indiscriminate in their approach, right?
I keep hearing this. Give me the name. But because I tell you now, if I got pulled and I'm an Australian citizen, I'm going to be right there at Channel 7, 9, 10, whoever, showing you my passport and going, this is out of control. So give me the name.
Oh, you know what? It's completely
just one.
It's completely justified, Dave.
Just one name.
It's completely justified. All right,
but
America, land of the free, liberty,
but
all of that, it's completely justified.
Land of the free doesn't mean that everyone's free to cross the borders and just turn
people and question people who look a bit different. Right?
I keep hearing this argument too. Question people that look a bit different. How are you supposed to actually do anything? So this whole thing, like this whole racial profiling thing. Okay, well, if you know most illegal immigrants have come from Central and South America and the Middle East, are you walking up to the average 6'2" white guy? How many of those live in Nicaragua? How many of those live in Peru? How many of those come out of Iraq?
But I didn't realize. I didn't realize, Dave, that the values that make you American had anything to do with skin color or religion or anything else.
But it doesn't. They've got to do their job. We do this all the time. One of the reasons why people now get upset is because we've stopped saying that the skin color or the ethnicity of perpetrators in crimes, even here in Australia, because people keep racial profile. You know why every time there's a machete attack in Melbourne, they don't say it's the Sudanese? Because they can't handle the fact that there are certain things that are disproportionate amongst certain groups of people. And this doesn't have to be like there aren't things that are disproportionate that white people represent. There are. But we've become like children that we can't even have a conversation and being honest to say, well, what do you think ICE agents should do? On odds of probability, if they go into a 99% white affluent neighborhood, what do you think the odds are there as that's where the illegals are hanging out?
I get it.
But if they go into crime-ridden places, they know they're looking for people from Central, South America, the Middle East, Africa. And I still, as I said, I just want one name, just one name of a US citizen that's been pulled up. Because as soon as, if you're a US citizen, you don't run. So if you were there, they pull your car over. And literally, a guy did this the other day, a black guy, because he wanted to show. It's on I think I saw on YouTube Shorts. He's a truck driver. He gets pulled over, and they say, and it's ICE. They say, can we see your CDL, commercial truck driver's license? Give it, sir. Yes, sir. Not a problem, sir. Well, thank you. Have a good day. Off he goes. So if you're not an illegal, what are you worried about? If ICE turn up, ICE aren't just randomly going, that one's brown, grab him. They know their targets. It's such a false narrative. And it's literally talking to a lot of police here, and the separate, I'm not talking about illegal immigration, but the through line of this lack of respect. New South Wales, I'm pretty sure it's the same elsewhere, but I only talk New South Wales because that's where my direct contacts are. We are losing police faster than we can replace them, and they're our best ones. And they're the academy's taking in kids at 18 years of age straight out of school now because they're desperate for numbers. Yep. And when you talk to everyone, it's because someone can spit in their face. People now start choosing what they think the law is. Where if you're ICE, if you're the police, and they got it wrong, guess what the lay is meant to be? That's why the police aren't judge, jury, execution. All they've done, they arrest you, they charge you. The courts will make a decision. So it's, I think we're in dangerous territory where we're defending people that make their own mind up on what they think is right and wrong, unless you're going to the ballot box.
I just think getting shot in the face 3 times by my own reasonable woke centre left approach is probably a bit over the top.
Yeah, but firstly, we're Australian, right? So to us, anyone gets shot by police, it's an unusual thing. But it's the same thing when it happens here. Someone has a knife and the police shoot them dead, and people go, oh, why didn't they shoot them in the leg? Well, go and pick up a gun and have someone charge you with a knife, and let's say you hit the leg. There's no guarantee you stop them. There's no guarantee you hit them. Like, again, he's standing in front of a car. He spent months in hospital being hit by someone in the same situation that ran over him with a car. And not even just him. We've all seen it in the US. We know traffic stops. Someone reaches to the glove box saying they've got a problem with guns. So you can't, I think, for me, all right, it is a bit harsh. You're a left-hard that carried on like a pork chop, got involved where you shouldn't have, and now you're dead. It's a harsh penalty. There's no two ways about it. Yeah, but I'm on the side of the guy that gave you 3 minutes and the 5 officers.
I'm okay with that. The outcome is the outcome. Welcome to the new America. That's fine. I won't be going there for a while.
Well, I don't think it's the new America. But what are you worried about? What, you think they're just randomly going to grab you or shoot you?
Sorry, Dave. It's just that I've had instances where I've engaged with people, real people, Australian people on X, who tell me they've had some experiences over there where they've been questioned.
People keep saying that, but again, this is like anything, right? If I turn around and say we got in the elevator today and Tony kicked me in the balls because we had robust discussion, does that mean my claim is true? It's a claim. Test the evidence. I don't rely on X. I want to see. And let's even run with it, right? We all know that there's 2,000 ICE enforcement just in Minnesota, like they're everywhere. So we would say, I think they've said they've deported something like 500,000 or 1 million people. Actually, it was higher. But anyway, let's call it 500,000 people. All right? That's a lot. So how many people have been shot in the face?
Yep, I get it.
And again, that's not justification. So let's even run. I'll go the other way. I'll say this guy, they probably should have retired him because putting him back on after he'd been hit by a car, they probably shouldn't have put him in this position, blah, blah, blah. I'll even run with that. Does that mean that 99.9% of the other ICE agents should be ignored, that they're a problem? Because there were 5 ICE agents around that car and only one's...
They're doing a job, right? They've been commissioned to do a job. They have to find these illegal aliens because the illegal aliens are all ending up on electoral rolls on voting. So it is what it is.
But people, again, I can give you names of people who have suffered at the hands of them, like Lake and Riley's and things like that. No one ever mentioned those names about the people that die at the hands of the illegal aliens who have been raping.
Yeah, I get it. Eating dogs.
But one person that gets shot, right? And as I said, hypothetically, let's run with it. The guy should be charged. It was all wrong. She's an innocent victim. What about all the other deaths and rapes to girls for people that shouldn't be in the country? We can't. I think we're going to have to do a whole second
No,
episode, by the way,
I just think it's a slippery slope. Like, I don't agree
It's
with
a
it.
slippery slope allowing individuals to pick and choose which laws and which authorities they think they should have to obey.
Oh, no.
That's the slippery slope.
I can't get away from the fact that there's a whole lot of people, right, who have got guns walking around, and the leader of them was yesterday conveniently dressed in something that resembled something in World War II, walking around in heavily democratic states, making people like me, my equivalent somewhere in Minneapolis, feeling uncomfortable about living in their city that they've lived in their whole life.
Well, I put it this way. They did the same thing in DC, and no one's complaining that DC is now safer. In fact, people came out and admitted it's the safest it's ever been. The only reason why it's becoming a flashpoint in places like Minnesota is they're fighting it. Tim Waltz and whatnot is telling police to stand down, and they're politicizing it. In places where they've let ICE do their job, the places are cleaned up.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, I'd say, Dave, that on the Maduro thing, let's close out on that. So basically,
well, it is sort of linked because, again, I guess one thing about Venezuela is, that they weren't exactly stopping caravans of people traveling through to head into the US.
Yeah, so I think I'm not sure where they go from here. I'm not even sure. See, this is the thing, Dave. What's the current state of government in Venezuela at the moment? Because I see somewhere
acknowledge the deputy's been sworn in.
Oh, because I could have thought I heard Donnie saying that he's the acting president of Venezuela.
I don't think he sees the acting president. He said we'll run it for a while. Yeah. And actually, you do realise there appears to be, and this is not something I've got data on, read data on, but there appears to be an overwhelming majority of Venezuelans that are happy at Maduro's downfall. And you did see the Nobel Peace Prize when they hand her Peace Prize to Donald Trump. Now, I know there's a play there, but the point being that people themselves that lived under this aren't exactly, upset.
I know, but immediately, what do their thoughts turn to? What's next, right? What's next for them? Who's got control? How are they going to govern? Are outcomes going to improve?
That's the question. Right. The last one you said. The rest, as I said, this is the nature of the beast.
Who's accountable for delivering that?
Yeah. Now you're on to real questions, right? If you've done this as the US and you want to take control of things, you are now responsible for if in 5-10 years' time the Venezuelan citizenry is not living a better life.
But at the moment, all they're really interested in is getting some of their, because I know that one oil company's gone in there already, and apparently the government's now going to tip in quite a significant amount of money to help build the infrastructure to actually refine the oil.
But this is the history of the world. You're from one of the greatest empires the world's ever seen.
What I'm saying is, again.
But the reason why I'm here and you're here is the same actual outcome. It's the Romans, right? Because my history goes back to England, and London's a Roman town, and you're literally an Italian.
Yep.
So it's not.
But what I'm saying, Dave, like in the context of, right, letting the free market do what the free market does, because that's the American approach. In the context of
the free market, as long as it's to their benefit,
a $37 trillion debt and growing,
38.
Right? Commitments to military spend that are going to go up from $1 trillion to $1.5 trillion a year, or something even like that. So all of this is piling on, but at the same time, in the past 12 months, a bit of money for NVIDIA, a bit of money for some other private enterprises, a bit of money for the oil companies to help them set up in Venezuela. For me, there's government fingerprints everywhere. They've probably always been there. It's more transparent now. Fantastic.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's more transparent.
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. It's not necessary at this point. It's not better and it's not worse, because we're too soon in to see the outcomes.
Yeah,
but it's just more transparent. And as much as I disagree, I still prefer this model.
Yeah, all I'd say is
honest.
Again, let's come back to this at some stage around outcomes for the Venezuelan people, not the government. Not the ruling class, the Venezuelan people who are struggling to feed families and get jobs.
And not just the Venezuelan people, it still needs to be the US citizens. This won't work for me if you can show that GDP has tripled and blah, 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 blah. And what I see is, for the top 20%. What I want to see is that for the US citizens, in 5-10 years' time, that things are significantly better. And now that you've taken on board the Venezuelans, for the Venezuelans, it's better.
Yeah, okay. Dave, good discussion as always. I think we're going to have to wrap up on this one, and we will continue the.
Well, we'll pick up more Maduro stuff. Well, there's going to be a lot more coming anyway in terms of what happened. So we'll be able to do a follow up on Maduro, Venezuela, ICE,
and everything else.
ICE, baby.
Just finish off with a Donald for me.
Well, Johnny, I was speaking to Goebbels earlier.
He's not Goebbels. You got to stop that.
But I think, Tony, I now got the Nobel Peace Prize I wanted. All it took was getting rid of one narco-terrorist. Thanks for listening. You have a right to be wrong.
See you, Dave. Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and we hope you enjoyed it. Like us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify.